Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. And we're sitting here with a whole host of saintly persons who have come here and are coming here regularly, as are all of you, to take step by step, by hearing verse by verse of the Bhagavatam, and in that way, going back to home, back to Godhead. To chant Hare Krishna, purify the heart. The tendency to hear about Krishna comes into the heart. You read the Srimad-Bhagavatam seriously, every day, especially in association of devotees. And eventually, you reach the 10th canto, and you're back home, back to Godhead, even if you can't perceive it completely. Hare Krishna. All right, so Sanatana Goswami, our dearmost Sanatana Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis are most dear to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Sanatana Goswami wrote this very deep prayer glorifying Srimad Bhagavatam, and we read it every day. Prabhupada said, repetition of a good thing is good. So we repeat this every day. Srimad-Bhagavata Mahima Stotram, and it goes like this. Sarva Shastra Piyusha, Sarva Vedaika Satpala, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaya, Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabhu, Kalidwandoditaditya, Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Shri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya, Prema Varshakshadayate, Sarvada Sarvasevyaya, Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. Lord Shri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin, Madguro Man Mahadana, Mannistataka Madbhagya, Nanda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadhu tadayin, adini chochatakada, hanamun shakadachin mam, Premnarit Kadayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So, we've heard about the drama of Shukracharya, the spiritual master, the Kula Guru of Bali Maharaj, giving him the wrong advice. Very dangerous thing to do if you're a spiritual master, is give somebody the wrong advice. And then Bali Maharaj said, no, I don't think so. I'd rather surrender to the Lord. And then he cursed him. Okay, it's not so clear what the curse was yet. But so here we are, in the ongoing saga of the appearance of Vamanadev. 8th canto, 24th verse, or 8th chapter, 20th chapter, 24th verse. Bali Maharaj saw the garments, beneath the garments of the Lord, who act wonderfully in the evening twilight. In the Lord's private parts, he saw the Prajapatis, and in the round portion of the waist, he saw himself with his confidential associates. In the Lord's navel, he saw the sky. On the Lord's waist, he saw the 7 oceans, and on the Lord's bosom, he saw all the clusters of stars. Text 25 to 29. My dear king, on the heart of Lord Murari, he saw religion. On the chest, both pleasing words and truthfulness. In the mind, the moon. On the bosom, the goddess of fortune, with a lotus flower in her hand. On the neck, all the Vedas and all sound vibrations. On the arms, all the demigods headed by King Indra. In both ears, all the directions. On the head, the upper planetary systems. In both ears, all the directions of on the head, the upper planetary systems. On the hair, the clouds. In the nostrils, the wind. On the eyes, the sun. And in the mouth, fire. From his words came all the Vedic mantras. On his tongue was the demigod of water, Varunadev. On his eyebrows were the regulated principles, and on his eyelids were day and night. When his eyes were open, it was daytime, and when they were closed, it was night. On his forehead was anger, and on his lips was greed. O king, in his touch were lusty desires, and in his semen were all the waters. On his back was irreligion, and in his wonderful activities or steps was the fire of sacrifice. On his shadow was death. In his smile was the illusory energy, and on the hairs of his body were all the drugs and herbs. In his veins were all the rivers. On his nails were all the stones. In his intelligence were Lord Brahma, the demigods, and the great saintly persons. And throughout his entire body and senses were all living entities, moving and stationary. Bali Maharaj thus saw everything in the gigantic body of the Lord. Text 30. O king, when all the demons, the followers of Bali Maharaj, saw the universal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who held everything within his body, when they saw in the Lord's hand his disc, known as the Sudarshan Chakra, which generates intolerable heat, and when they heard the tumultuous sound of his bow, all of these caused lamentation within their hearts. That verse is in the Bhagavad Gita. The demons, the devotees are glorifying, the demons are running here and there, so all this is rightly done. Text 31, that was when Arjuna was seeing the universal form of Krishna. Text 31. Actually, Arjuna saw the whole universal form, but in different times he showed part of the universal form. He showed part to Duryodhana to let him know what was going to happen. And this is also a partial, because Arjuna could see everything that was happening in the universe all at once, sitting in one place, past, present, and future. Think about that. What that would be like. The Lord's conch shell, named Panchajanya, which made sounds like that of a cloud. The very forceful club, named Komodaki. The sword, named Vidyadhara, with a shield decorated with hundreds of moon-like spots. And also Akshayasyaka, the best of quivers. All of these appeared together to offer prayers to the Lord. These associates, headed by Sunanda and other chief associates, and accompanied by all the predominating deities of the different planets, offered prayers to the Lord, who wore a brilliant helmet, bracelets, and glittering earrings that resembled fish. On the Lord's bosom were the lock of hair called Shrivats and the transcendental jewel named Kaustuba. He wore a yellow garment covered by a belt, and he was decorated by a flower garland surrounded by bees. Manifesting himself in this way, O King, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose activities are wonderful, covered the entire surface of the earth with one footstep, the sky with his body, and all directions with his arms. Purport. One might argue, since Bali Maharaj promised Vamanadev only the land occupied by his steps, why did Lord Vamanadev occupy the sky also? In this regard, Srila Jiva Goswami says that the steps include everything, downward and upward. When one stands up, he certainly occupies certain parts of the sky and certain portions of the earth below his feet. Thus, there was nothing uncommon for the Supreme Personality of Godhead when he occupied the entire sky with his body. 34. As the Lord took his second step, he covered the heavenly planets, and not even a spot remained for his third step. For the Lord's foot extended higher and higher, beyond Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and even Satyaloka. When the Lord's footstep when the Lord's footstep exceeded the height of all the lokas, including Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka, mind you, Bali Maharaj was just in charge of Swargaloka down. His nails certainly pierced the covering of the universe. The universe is covered by the 5 material elements, Bhumhir, Apo, Nolo, Bayu, Kam. As stated in the Shastra, these elements are in layers, each 10 times thicker than the previous one. Nonetheless, the nails of the Lord pierced through all these layers and made a hole penetrating into the spiritual world. From this hole, the water of the Ganges infiltrated into this material world, and therefore it is said, Padanaka Nira Janita Jana Pavana. Dashashvatara Stotra 5. Because the Lord kicked a hole in the covering of the universe, the water of the Ganges came into this material world to deliver all the fallen souls. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 8th canto, 20th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled Bali Maharaj Surrenders the Universe. Okay, turn this around. Look at him. I'd like to introduce you all to Sham Kishore. He came from London, and he's a brahmachari for quite some time. We initiated him, when? Some time ago. Some time ago. And he's the only one that goes out every single day to distribute Prabhupada's books. Thank you very much. There's nothing that pleases me like that. Hare Krishna. Okay. This is Rasa. You've ever met Rasika Shekhar? He's your godbrother. This is Jai Shri on the left. She's from Hong Kong. She's also your god sister. And she is oncologist, just in case you get really sick. You know, we got you covered. We got you covered. And this is Ananda Manjari, also from Hong Kong. Okay. Chapter 21. Bali Maharaj arrested by the Lord. Be careful, kids. This chapter describes how Lord Vishnu, desiring to advertise the glories of Bali Maharaj, arrested him for not fulfilling his promise in regard to the Lord's third step. With the second step, the Supreme Personality of Godhead reached the topmost planet of the universe, Brahmaloka, which he diminished in beauty by the effulgence of his toenails. Thus Lord Brahma, accompanied by great sages like Marichi and the predominating deities of the higher planets, offered humble prayers and worship to the Lord. They washed the Lord's feet and worshipped him with all paraphernalia. Riksharaj, Jambavan, played his bugle to vibrate the glories of the Lord. When Bali Maharaj was deprived of all his possessions, the demons were very angry. Although nothing could please them. Although Bali Maharaj warned them not to do so, they took up weapons against Lord Vishnu. All of them were defeated, however, by Lord Vishnu's eternal associates. And in accordance with Bali Maharaj's order, they all entered the lower planets of the universe. Understanding Lord Vishnu's purpose, Garuda, the carrier of Lord Vishnu, immediately arrested Bali Maharaj with the ropes of Varuna. When Bali Maharaj was thus reduced to a helpless position, Lord Vishnu asked him for the third step of land. Because Lord Vishnu appreciated Bali Maharaj's determination and integrity, when Bali Maharaj was unable to fulfill his promise, Lord Vishnu ascertained that the place for him would be the planet Sutala, which is better than the planets of heaven. Text 1. Shukadeva Goswami continued, when Lord Brahma, who was born of a lotus flower, saw that the effulgence of his residence, Brahmaloka, had been reduced by the glaring effulgence from the toenails of Lord Vamanadev, he approached the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Brahma was accompanied by all the great sages, headed by Marichi, and by yogis like Sanandana. But in the presence of that glaring effulgence, O King, even Lord Brahma and his associates seemed insignificant. We're missing one chair. Anybody know what happened to that chair? Oh, next. Huh? It went to the ashram? There's thieves. There's thieves. There's thieves in this place. Don't trust anybody if you can't trust the brahmachari. Or maybe it's the other way around. Okay, I have a chair. I have another chair on my balcony. You can go into my balcony. There you go. This is your penance. You have to go in there, get the balcony, in the chair, and bring it right there. Jeez. Can't trust these brahmacharis, you know. They're like Vamanadev. They're servants of Brahmadev. They can do anything. They can take anything. Okay. I'll do this one again. Shukadeva Goswami continued, when Lord Brahma, who was born of a lotus flower, saw that the effulgence of his residence, Brahmaloka, had been reduced by the glaring effulgence from the toenails of Lord Vamanadev, he approached the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Brahma was accompanied by all the great sages, headed by Marichi, and by yogis like Sanandana. But in the presence of that glaring effulgence, O King, even Lord Brahma and his associates seemed insignificant. Text 2 and 3. Among the great personalities who came to worship the lotus feet of the Lord were those who had attained perfection in self-control and regulative principles, as well as experts in logic, history, general education in such Vedic literature as Kalpa and old historical incidents. Others were expert in the Vedic corollaries, like Brahma Samhita, and all the other knowledge of the Vedas, Sama, Yajur, Rig, and Atharva, and also the supplementary Vedic knowledge, Ayurveda, Dhanurveda, etc. Others were those who had been freed of the reactions to fruitive activities by transcendental knowledge, awakened by practice of yoga. And still others, yes, thank you. And still others were those who had attained residence in Brahmaloka, not by ordinary karma, but by advanced Vedic knowledge. After devotedly worshipping the upraised lotus feet of the Supreme Lord with oblations of water, Lord Brahma, who was born of the lotus emanating from Lord Vishnu's navel, offered prayers to the Lord. Text 4. O King, the water from Lord Brahma's Kamandalu washed the lotus feet of Lord Vamanadev, who was known as Urukrama, the wonderful actor. Thus that water became so pure that it was transformed into the water of the Ganges, which went flowing down from the sky, purifying the three worlds like the pure fame of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. Here we understand that the Ganges began when the water from Lord Brahma's Kamandalu washed the lotus feet of Lord Vamanadev. But in the 5th canto it is stated that the Ganges began when Vamanadev's left foot pierced the covering of the universe, so that the transcendental water of the causal ocean leaked through. And elsewhere it is also stated that Lord Narayana appeared as the water of the Ganges. The water of the Ganges, therefore, is a combination of 3 transcendental waters, and thus the Ganges is able to purify the 3 worlds. This is a description given by Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur. Text 5. Lord Brahma and all the predominating deities of the various planetary systems began to worship Lord Vamanadev, their spiritual master, who had reduced them from his all-pervading form, who had reduced himself from his all-pervading form to his original form. They collected all the ingredients and paraphernalia for his worship. Purport. Vamanadev first expanded himself to the universal form, and then reduced himself to the original Vamana Rupa. Thus he acted exactly like Lord Krishna, who, at the request of Arjuna, first showed his universal form and later resumed his original form as Krishna. The Lord can assume any form he likes, but his original form is that of Krishna. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. According to the capacity of the devotee, the Lord assumes various forms so that the devotee can handle him. This is his causeless mercy. When Lord Vamanadev resumed his original form, Lord Brahma and his associates collected various paraphernalia for worship with which to please him. Text 6 and 7. They worshipped the Lord by offering fragrant flowers, water, padya, and arghya, sandalwood pulp, and a guru pulp, incense, lamps, fused rice, unbroken grains, roots, and sprouts. While doing so, they offered prayers indicating the glorious activities of the Lord and shouted, Jai, Jai. They also danced, played instruments, sang, sounded conch shells, and beat kettle drums, in this way, worshipping the Lord. Jambavan, king of the bears, also joined in the ceremony. Sounding his bugle in all directions, he declared a great festival for Lord Vamanadeva's victory. When the Dvaniac followers of Bali Maharaj saw that their master, who had been determined in performing sacrifice, had lost all his possessions to Vamanadev, who had taken them away on the plea of begging 3 paces of land, they were very angry and spoke as follows. This Vamana is certainly not a Brahmana. This Vamana was certainly not a Brahmana. Oh my God, brother, what is his name? Pari Vidya. He sings like that. This Vamana is certainly not a Brahmana, but the best of cheaters, Lord Vishnu. Assuming the form of a Brahmana, he has covered his own form, and thus he is working for the interests of the demigods. 11. Right in front of everybody. They're just... Some people can say anything in front of anybody. Our Bali Maharaj, because of his position in performing the yajna, has given up the power to punish. Taking advantage of this, our eternal enemy, Vishnu, dressed in the form of a brahmachari beggar, has taken away all his possessions. 12. Our Lord Bali Maharaj is always fixed in truthfulness, and this is especially so at present, since he has been initiated into performing a sacrifice. He is always kind and merciful toward the brahmanas, and he cannot at any time speak lies. Therefore, it is our duty to kill this Vamanadev. Where's that logic? Anyway, even the demon's logic is illogical. It is our religious principle, and the way to serve our master. After making this decision, the demoniac followers of Maharaj Bali took up their various weapons with a view to killing Vamanadev. I mean, if that's not stupid, I don't know what is. Stupid is what stupid does. Text 14. O king, the demons, aggravated by their usual anger, took their lances and tridents in hand, and against the will of Bali Maharaj, they pushed forward to kill Lord Vamanadev. O king, when the associates of Lord Vishnu saw the soldiers of the demons coming forward in violence, they smiled. Taking up their weapons, they forbade the demons to continue their attempt. 16-17. Nanda, Sunanda, Jai, Vijay, Prabala, Bala, Kamuda, Kumudaksha, Vishwaksena, Patatirat, Garuda, Jayanta, Shrutidev, Pushpadanta, and Satpata were all associates of Lord Vishnu. They were as powerful as 10,000 elephants, and now they began killing the soldiers of the demons. 18. When Bali Maharaj saw that his own soldiers were being killed by the associates of Vishnu, he remembered the curse of Shukracharya and forbade his soldiers to continue fighting. Text 19. O Viprichiti, O Rahu, O Nemi, please hear my words. Don't fight. Stop immediately, for the present time is not in our favor. 20. O Daityas, by human efforts, no one can supersede the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who can bring happiness and distress to all living entities. 21. The Supreme Time Factor, which represents the Supreme Person, was previously in our favor and not in favor of the demigods. But now that same time factor is against us. 22. No one can surpass the time representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by material power, by the council of ministers, by intelligence, by diplomacy, by fortresses, by mystic mantras, by drugs, by herbs, or by any other means. 23. Previously, being empowered by providence, you defeated a great number of such followers of Lord Vishnu, but today, those same followers, having defeated us, are roaring in jubilation like lions. Purport. Bhagavad Gita mentions 5 causes of defeat or victory. Of these 5, Daiva, providence, is the most powerful. Nacha Daivat Padam Balam. Bali Maharaj knew the secret of how he had formerly been victorious because providence was in his favor. Now, since that same providence was not in his favor, there was no possibility of his victory. Thus he very intelligently forbade his associates to fight. Text 24. Unless providence is in our favor, we shall not be able to gain victory. Therefore we must wait for that favorable time when our defeating them will be possible. Text 25. Shukadeva Goswami continued, O king, in accordance with the order of their master, Bali Maharaj, all the chiefs of the demons and the Daityas entered the lower regions of the universe, to which they were driven by the soldiers of Vishnu. 26. Thereafter, on the day of Somapana, after the sacrifice was finished, Garuda, king of the birds, understanding the desire of his master, arrested Bali Maharaj with the ropes of Varuna. Purport. Garuda, the constant companion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, knows the confidential part of the Lord's desire. Bali Maharaj's tolerance and devotion were undoubtedly super excellent. Garuda arrested Bali Maharaj to show the entire universe the greatness of the king's tolerance. Text 27. When Bali Maharaj was thus arrested by Lord Vishnu, who is the most powerful, there was a great roar of lamentation in all directions throughout the upper and lower planetary systems of the universe. 28. O king, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vamanadev, then spoke to Bali Maharaj, the most liberal and celebrated personality, whom he had arrested with the ropes of Varuna. Bali Maharaj had lost all bodily luster, but he was nonetheless fixed in his determination. Purport. When one is bereft of all his possessions, he is certainly reduced in bodily luster. But although Bali Maharaj had lost everything, he was fixed in his determination to satisfy Vamanadev, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita, such a person is called Stita Pragya. A pure devotee is never deviated from the service of the Lord, despite all difficulties and impediments offered by the illusory energy. Generally, men who have wealth and opulence are famous, but Bali Maharaj became famous for all time by being deprived of all his possessions. This is the special mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead toward his devotees. The Lord says, Yasyaham anugrinami harishe tadanam shanahi. As the first installment of his special favor, the Lord takes away all the possessions of his devotee. A devotee, however, is never disturbed by such a loss. He continues his service, and the Lord amply rewards him beyond the expectations of any common man. Text 29. O king of the demons, you have promised to give me 3 steps of land, but I have occupied the entire universe with 2 steps. Now think about where I should put my 3rd. Text 30. As far as the sun and moon shine with the stars, and as far as the clouds pour rain, all the land throughout the universe is in your possession. Of these possessions, with 1 step I have occupied Burloka, and with my body I have occupied the entire sky in all directions, and in your presence, with my 2nd step, I have occupied the upper planetary system. Purport. According to the Vedic description of the planetary system, all the planets move from east to west. The sun, the moon, and 5 other planets, such as Mars and Jupiter, orbit one above another. Vamanadev, however, expanding his body and extending his steps, occupied the entire planetary system. Text 32. Because you have been unable to give charity according to your promise, the rule is that you should go down to live in the hellish planets. therefore in advance with the order of Shukracharya. In accordance with the order of Shukracharya, your spiritual master, now go down and live there. Purport. It is said, Narayana padak sarve, nakutas chanabibhyati, swarga pavarga narakeshu, apitulyarta darshinaha. Devotees solely engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, never fear any condition of life. For them, the heavenly planets, liberation, and the hellish planets are all the same. For such devotees are interested only in the service of the Lord. Srimad-Bhagavatam 6, 17, 28. A devotee engaged in the service of Narayana is always in equilibrium. A devotee actually lives transcendentally. Although he may appear to have gone to hell or heaven, he does not live in either place. Rather, he always lives in Vaikuntha. Sagunan samatitaitan brahmabhuyaya kalpate. Vamanadev asked Bali Maharaj to go to the hellish planets, apparently just to show the entire universe how tolerant he was. And Bali Maharaj did not hesitate to carry out the order. A devotee does not live alone. Of course, everyone lives with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but because the devotee is engaged in his service, he actually does not live in any material condition. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Kita janma hao yata tu yadas. Thus he prays to take birth as an insignificant insect in the association of the devotees. Because devotees are engaged in the service of the Lord, anyone who lives with them also lives in Vaikuntha. 33. Far from being elevated to the heavenly planets or fulfilling one's desire, one who does not properly give a beggar what he has promised falls down into a hellish condition of life. Text 34. Being falsely proud of your possessions, you promised to give me land, but you could not fulfill your promise. Therefore, because your promise was false, you must live for a few years in hellish life. Of course, that hellish planet happened to be more opulent than heavenly planets by his arrangement. Purport. The false prestige of thinking I am very rich and I possess such vast property is another side of material life. Everything belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and no one else possesses anything. This is the real fact. Ishavasyamidam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat. Bali Maharaj was undoubtedly the most exalted devotee, whereas previously he had maintained a misunderstanding due to false prestige. By the supreme will of the Lord, he now had to go to the hellish planets, but because he went there by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he lived there more opulently than one could expect to live in the planets of heaven. A devotee always lives with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, engaging in his service, and therefore he is always transcendental to hellish or heavenly residences. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 8th canto, 21st chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled Bali Maharaj, Arrested by the Lord. Lord Vamanadev ki jai, Bali Maharaj ki jai. Chapter 22. Bali Maharaj surrenders his life. The summary of this 22nd chapter is as follows. The Supreme Personality of Godhead was pleased by the behavior of Bali Maharaj. Thus the Lord placed him on the planet Sutala, And there, after bestowing benedictions upon him, the Lord agreed to become his doorman. Bali Maharaj was extremely truthful. Being unable to keep his promise, he was very much afraid, for he knew that one who has deviated from truthfulness is insignificant in the eyes of society. An exalted person can suffer the consequences of hellish life, but he is very much afraid of being defamed for deviation from the truth. Bali Maharaj agreed with great pleasure to accept the punishment awarded him by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Bali Maharaj's dynasty, there were many asuras who, because of their enmity toward Vishnu, had achieved a destination more exalted than that of many mystic yogis. Bali Maharaj specifically remembered the determination of Prahlad Maharaj in devotional service. Considering all these points, he decided to give his head in charity as the place for Vishnu's third step. Bali Maharaj also considered how great personalities give up their family relationships and material possessions to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Indeed, they sometimes even sacrifice their lives for the satisfaction of the Lord, just to become his personal servants. Accordingly, by following in the footsteps of previous acharyas and devotees, Bali Maharaj perceived himself successful. While Bali Maharaj, having been arrested by the ropes of Varuna, was offering prayers to the Lord, his grandfather, Prahlad Maharaj, appeared there and described how the Supreme Personality of Godhead had delivered Bali Maharaj by taking his possessions in a tricky way. While Prahlad Maharaj was present, Lord Brahma and Bali's wife, Vindyabali, described the supremacy of the Supreme Lord. Since Bali Maharaj had given everything to the Lord, they prayed for his release. The Lord then described how a non-devotee's possession of wealth is a danger, whereas a devotee's opulence is a benediction from the Lord. Thus, being pleased with Bali Maharaj, the Supreme Lord offered his disc to protect Bali Maharaj and promised to remain with him. Suridam Sarvabhutana. Text 1. Shukadeva Goswami said, O King, although the Supreme Personality of Godhead was superficially seen to have acted mischievously toward Bali Maharaj was fixed in his determination. Considering himself not to have fulfilled his promise, he spoke as follows. Purport. Bali Maharaj said, O best Supreme Personality of Godhead, most worshipable for all the demigods, if you think that my promise has become false, I shall certainly rectify matters to make it truthful. I cannot allow my promise to be false. Therefore, please, place your third lotus foot step on my head. Purport. Bali Maharaj could understand the pretense of Lord Vamanadev, who had taken the side of the demigods and come before him as a beggar. Although the Lord's purpose was to cheat him, Bali Maharaj took pleasure in understanding how the Lord will cheat his devotees to glorify the devotee's position. It is said that God is good, and this is a fact. Whether he cheats or rewards, he is always good. Bali Maharaj therefore addressed him as Uttama Shloka. Your Lordship, he said, you are always praised with the best of selected verses. On behalf of the demigods, you disguised yourself to cheat me, saying that you wanted only 3 paces of land, but later you expanded your body to such an extent that with your 2 footsteps you covered the entire universe. Because you were working on behalf of your devotees, you do not regard this as cheating. Never mind. Never mind. I cannot be considered a devotee. Nonetheless, because although you are the husband of the goddess of fortune, you have come to me to beg. I must satisfy you to the best of my ability. So please, do not think that I want to cheat you. I must fulfill my promise. I still have one possession, my body. When I place my body for your satisfaction, please put your third step on my head. Since the Lord had covered the entire universe with 2 steps, one might ask how Bali Maharaj's head could be sufficient for his 3rd step. Bali Maharaj, however, thought that the possessor of wealth must be greater than the possession. Therefore, although the Lord had taken all his possessions, the head of Bali Maharaj, the possessor, would provide adequate place for the Lord's 3rd step. Text 3. I do not fear being deprived of all my possessions, living in hellish life, being arrested for poverty by the ropes of Varuna, or being punished by you, as much as I fear defamation. Purport. Although Bali Maharaj fully surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he could not tolerate being defamed for cheating a Brahmana brahmachari. Being quite alert in regard to his reputation, he thought deeply about how to prevent being defamed. The Lord therefore gave him the good counsel to prevent defamation by offering his head. A Vaishnava does not fear any punishment. Narayana parak sarve na kutas chana bibyati. Srimad-Bhagavatam 6:17-28. Text 4. Although a father, mother, brother, or friend may sometimes punish one as well-wisher, they never punish their subordinate like this. But because you are the most worshipable Lord, I regard the punishment you have given me as most exalted. Purport. Punishment meted out by the Supreme Personality of Godhead is accepted by the devotee as the greatest mercy. Tat tenu kampam susamikshimano punjana evatmakitam vipakam ridbag bapur-bir bididannamaste jivet tayo muktipade sadaya bak. One who seeks your compassion, and thus tolerates all kinds of adverse conditions due to the karma of his past deeds, who engages always in your devotional service with his mind, words, and body, and who always offers obeisances to you, is certainly a bona fide candidate for liberation. Srimad-Bhagavatam 10:14-8. A devotee knows that so-called punishment by the Supreme Personality of Godhead is only his favor to correct his devotee and bring him to the right path. Therefore, the punishment awarded by the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be compared to even the greatest benefit awarded by one's material father, mother, brother, or friend. Text 5. Since your Lordship is indirectly the greatest well-wisher of us demons, you act for our best welfare by posing as if our enemy. Because demons like us always aspire for a position of false prestige, by chastising us, you give us the eyes by which to see the right path. Purport. Bali Maharaj considered the Supreme Personality of Godhead a better friend to the demons than to the demigods. In the material world, the more one gets material possessions, the more it becomes blind to spiritual life. The demigods are devotees of the Lord for the sake of material possessions. But although the demons apparently do not have the Supreme Personality of Godhead on their side, he always acts as their well-wisher by depriving them of their positions of false prestige. By false prestige, one is misguided, so the Supreme Lord takes away their possession of false prestige as a special favor. Hare Krishna. That's where we stop our reading tonight. Mm. Mm. Okay, Bhakta Marcus beat everybody to the punch, and he got the
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Bhakta Marcus.
So it was just in text 29 when it was describing part of his partial manifestation of the universal form, and it said on his forehead was anger, and on his lips were greed, and so on, and in his touch were lusty desires. My question doesn't pertain necessarily to the text, but it stoked just a question about the nature of demoniac qualities and divine qualities. And I was wondering, so if it's to be understood that demoniac qualities, the manifestation of demoniac qualities are the absence of divine qualities, are we as in our conditioned state latently demoniac?
Well, first of all, these qualities that you're hearing about that the Lord has are not demoniac.
Okay.
Because he's never lusty.
Not pertaining to
I understand.
Krishna.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. One step at a time. So, when a person turns his back on Krishna and decides that he wants to try to enjoy and own and control Krishna's energy without Krishna, then he comes to the material world. And therefore, the thing that appears to be like lust, looks like lust in the spiritual world, but it's actually pure love, becomes distorted by being filtered through the material energy. So indirectly, Krishna is the source of all those things. But to him, they're not demoniac. So the soul is of the same spiritual constitution as the Lord. But when the soul is covered by the subtle body and the gross body, that love for Krishna becomes reflected through or distorted by the different modes of nature. And therefore, the natural attraction they have and affection and all these things for the Lord become attraction and affection for the different forms in this material world. And according to the compatibility of the mode of nature that is surrounding you, or the combination of modes that are surrounding you, and a certain object apart from you, you will become attracted to that thing. And it happens to be a man or a woman, the opposite sex, or nowadays, who knows? Then that becomes the object of your affection, and it becomes lust. Because lust means the desire to satisfy one's own senses. That's lust. And love means the desire to serve or satisfy the senses of the Lord. So as long as we're in this material world, there is no love. What appears to be love is just a temporary manifestation of that affection for Krishna in the form of lust. And even if you have extended affection for your family, or for your country, or for here Bali Maharaj is the whole universe, it's for one's own gratification. Therefore, it's called extended selfishness. So in that sense, yes, every one of us have these things. Now, taking it one step further, we have these two natures, the demoniac nature and the divine nature, which are described in the Gita very clearly, the difference. And all the human-like living entities in this material world are of one of those categories. And before, they were, therefore, you could hear now. This is a long time ago. And the demons actually, their abodes were in another place in the universe. The demigods live over here and the demons live over here. And then as the universe expands, or not necessarily expands, but in time, as the ages progress and passion becomes more prominent, or eventually mixed, then ignorance becomes prominent, then that demoniac nature, the demoniac nature in these different ages, the demons and devotees come onto the same planet, but they're separated by continents. And then when it comes to Kali Yuga, they're in the same body, the natures. So yes, all of us have demoniac and divine natures. That's why they all have this cartoons, you know, where there's a little angel over here saying, and a little devil over here going, you know. And we get that choice in the Kali Yuga. And, you know, because Lord Chaitanya came, he just gave an opportunity for all of us, even though there's demoniac and divine natures inside of us, he gave the opportunity, if they chant sincerely, to come back to him. Where in other ages, you'd have to do a lot of other things to get to that point.
Thank you.
Yes, Bhakti Doug.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
I just had a reflection that is actually it's kind of funny to me. Hearing about the demons and their attitude towards Vishnu, calling him their eternal enemy. And meanwhile, we also hear in other places that Vishnu, Krishna, he's nobody's enemy. He's just equal to all. So from their perspective, he's just this enemy that's always trying to bring them down and take everything away from them. And then we actually also hear that he's actually doing it to help them, because by false prestige one is misguided.
Yes.
So the Supreme Lord takes away their position. The false prestige is a special favor.
Yes, yes.
So yeah, that's amazing.
Wonderful. So let's hear that verse in the Bhagavad Gita, shall we?
Please.
Samoham sarvabhuteshu yo name dvesho stina priyaha ye bhajanti tumang bhaktya mayite teshu japyaham. I am no one. I am partial, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. So the Lord is not partial. He's just responding to how, here you have the situation. How clear does it have to become? He just put his toe through the top of the universe and expanded his body so everyone could see. It's all his. It's all him. And yet still the demon said, let's get him, we'll kill it, hello? How Krishna is supposed to respond to that? Oh, come over here and take an embrace. He's responding how they approach him. So if you want to get friendly treatment, treat him like a friend. Ye bhajanti tamam bhaktya. You worship him, and then he responds by giving himself to you. And in this case, he gave himself to Bali Maharaj after he gave up all these other things. And then what did Bali Maharaj, then what did Vamadev say? Okay, I'll come and be your doorman. So imagine, here's him coming out of the door and Vamadev. It's like so that's the epitome of that verse. The epitome of that verse. And the epitome of the section that you just read. How he does these things to the demons just to give them special favor. But still, they can act like these rascals and try to, attack him and come, even though it's it's been made so obvious by him. Yudhishthira Maharaj was famous for never having told a lie in his whole life. So then, Krishna asked him, you make an announcement, 'cause it has to be you that makes the announcement, because he knows that you never tell a lie. And you're not going to kill Dronacharya, because he's better than all of you put together. He was that good. Actually, without Krishna, they would have got wiped off the planet, the Kurus. They had such great fighters and warriors. So then Yudhishthira said, I can't do that. I never told a lie in my life. And at that moment, he became eligible to see hell. But sometimes people interpret it in a different way. So it wasn't because he told a lie. It was because he refused to tell the lie when Krishna told him to. And then, of course, Bhima said, I got it. He went and he killed an elephant that was named Ashwatthama, the son of Dronacharya. And then Krishna said to Yudhishthira, okay, you can just make an announcement, Ashwatthama the elephant has been killed. And Yudhishthira thought for a second, he says, okay, I can do that, that's not a lie, I can do that. Then he went over and he said, in front, in the earshot of Dronacharya, Ashwatthama, and then it was either Bhima or Krishna. He went beep with the conch shell. Ashwatthama the beep has been killed. So he couldn't hear the word elephant. And then he became, like any father would feel if his son was killed. Became, and then boom. And actually he thought, this is it. It wasn't they actually killed him, although Dhrisadhyumna was the one who was destined to kill him. So he shot the arrow, but he had already given up his life. He had already decided, that's it. Great souls. Everybody was great souls on this battlefield. And the demons and the demigods from the different planets, they came and took birth on the earth, and they duked it out in the Battle of Kurukshetra. That's why it seems so inconceivably large and big and amazing, because it was actually these same demigods and demons duking it out on the earth. It's like their sport, It's like, Houston and, I don't know, what do they call them? Houston, come on, Rockets. It's the Rockets versus the Warriors, or whatever it is, Hey. Material life. I would like to beg, do we have someone there? Oh, and you're going to read it from the proper place. Okay.
Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. I have a reflection. Tonight we heard one nice point by Srila Prabhupada in Srimad-Bhagavatam 8:21-5 purport. Quote, according to the capacity of the devotee, the Lord assumes various forms so that the devotee can handle him. This is his causeless mercy. End quote. I thought that to be very nicely worded by Srila Prabhupada. And it's nice to know that Krishna cares so much about us that he is willing to adapt himself to however we can handle him. Would you like to expand on this point?
I don't have nothing to say after that. That was perfectly spoken. I have nothing more to say. I'll tell you a story in the Puranas that vividly explains that, and also is an amazing story. to show how much that's true. So there was this Brahmana. And the Brahmana was so poor, he had absolutely no facilities. All he had was one cloth. And he was a Brahmana. And he'd been given a really beautiful Shalagram Shila. So this Brahmana had no facilities, so he would carry it in his mouth. So one day, and then he would go from place to place, and he would set up his temporary altar, and he would put his Shalagram Shila on the altar, and then nicely decorate it, and then he'd do his worship and make an offering. He didn't have very much, a little fruit, leaf, whatever he had. And then one day this king came and was watching the Brahmana doing his puja while he was doing the puja. And he was so touched and moved by the devotion that was coming from this person's heart. He said, "Oh, you must be this and that and everything." And then the Brahmin finished, and he went, he put the Shila in his mouth. And the king said, "Oh, no, you can't do that." You know, and then he said, "Well, what can I do? I don't have anything else to put him, so I don't have pockets, I have nothing." So, and then he said, no, please, you give him to me, and I'll, worship him nicely. I'll make a temple for him. I'll worship him with silver and gold and jewels and perfect prasadam and everything. So the devotee who had such a devotion for the Lord, he said, "Oh, this must be better for my Lord." Okay, and he gave the Shila to the king. And I don't know how long it was, but very soon that Shila came to the king in a dream and said, "Why did you take me from my devotee? I was so happy." He had pure devotion. I was so happy. So according to the capacity of the person, if the person, and that's the catch, it's not that just because you're poor, you can get that kind of facility. You have to have pure devotion. And according to the capacity of a pure devotee, the Lord will appear in a form which will allow the devotee to have personal contact. So if you're a very rich person and you treat the Lord, in India sometimes Prabhupada would laugh. He would go to these big places, people's house, and they would have a big, gorgeous, like arrangement for the Lord and Tom, or they keep him in a very big box or something like that. And when it came time to offer food, they just open the box, throw a banana in, and close, fruit, flour, water, and then go out and cook a huge feast for their family. They do that. We call them in the West literalists. The Lord says, fruit, flour, and water. Okay, with your permission, is there anything else? Okay, I just used my voice. It's finished. So if I don't take early rest, I'm not going to be able to record tomorrow, and we have to record tomorrow. So thank you so much, as usual, those who've come from distant places to come and attend the live readings that some of them are listening to out there in cyberspace. Thank you so much. Thank all of you also who are there every night, loyally, listening to the Bhagavatam. I thank you. And with that, I bid thee adieu. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Vamana Dev ki jai. Bali Maharaj ki jai. Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hare Krishna.